A night of bad decisions, and when the rain hammered against the windows of Riley Patterson's downtown apartment like 1,000 tiny drummers announcing the worst Friday night of her month. She sat cross-legged on her bed, phone in hand, staring at the Instagram post that made her stomach twist into knots. There he was, Derek Hansen, her ex-boyfriend of 3 years, grinning like he had won the lottery with his arm wrapped around a blonde woman who looked like she stepped out of a shampoo commercial. 3 months. It had been exactly 3 months since their breakup. Already he was posting couple photos with captions like "Found my sunshine" with the sun emoji. Riley wanted to throw her phone across the room. "Are you still looking at his page?" Jamie Torres's voice crackled through the speaker. Her best friend had called an hour ago and refused to hang up until Riley stopped torturing herself. "I can't help it," Riley admitted, taking another sip of her second glass of wine. "Look at her, Jamie. She's perfect. Blonde hair, perfect teeth, probably never had a bad photo in her entire life." "Stop it right now," Jamie commanded. "Derek is an idiot who never appreciated you. You know what you need? Chocolate and a time machine?" "Revenge," Jamie said firmly. "Not crazy revenge. Classy revenge. Send him a photo. Something hot. Let him see exactly what he's missing. Then block him and move on with your fabulous life." Riley laughed, but the idea planted itself in her mind like a seed. She had always been the sensible one, the woman who followed rules and never made impulsive decisions. But tonight, with wine warming her blood and her ego bruised from seeing Derek so happy without her, sensible seemed overrated. "One photo," Jamie pressed. "Something that makes him regret every stupid decision he ever made. Then you're done. No more stalking his social media. No more crying. Just closure." The emerald decision. Riley found herself walking to her closet before she could talk herself out of it. Hidden in the back, still in its original packaging, it's the emerald green lingerie set she had purchased 6 months ago during a moment of confidence. She had never worn it, saving it for some special occasion that never came. The fabric felt like silk in rebellion against her fingertips as she held it up to the light. Delicate lace traced patterns across the cups, and the color would look stunning against her dark hair and olive skin. If she was going to do this, she was going to do it right. In the bathroom, Riley changed slowly, adjusting the straps and checking her reflection from every angle. The woman staring back at her looked confident, desirable, powerful. For the first time in months, she felt attractive instead of discarded. She positioned her phone carefully, finding the perfect angle that suggested without revealing too much. The photo captured the curve of her shoulder, the fall of her hair, the hint of emerald lace. It was tasteful, but undeniably sensual. Exactly what she needed to remind Derek of his mistake. Riley took a deep breath and opened her messages. Derek's name sat near the top of her recent conversations. Her fingers shook slightly as she typed. "Thought you might want to see what you're missing." She attached the photo and hit send before she could second-guess herself. The satisfaction lasted exactly 4 seconds. Then, Riley looked at her screen, and her entire world stopped. The message thread wasn't with Derek Hansen. It was with Grant Whitmore. Work. Grant Whitmore, her boss. The CEO of Beacon Media Group, the man who signed her paychecks and could fire her with a single word. "No, no, 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 no," Riley whispered, her hands shaking so hard she nearly dropped the phone. "This cannot be happening." The message that changed everything. She stared at the screen, praying it was a nightmare brought on by too much wine and emotional distress. But the evidence remained crystal clear. The emerald lingerie photo had been delivered to Grant Whitmore at 9:47 p.m. on a Friday night. Delivered. Read 9:48 p.m. He had seen it. Grant had seen the photo meant for her ex-boyfriend. Riley felt like she might throw up. Her first instinct was to delete it, but would that make things worse? Should she apologize? Explain? Pretend her phone was stolen? Her mind raced through increasingly ridiculous scenarios as panic clawed up her throat. With trembling fingers, Riley typed, "Mr. Whitmore, I am so incredibly sorry. That message was meant for someone else. Please delete it. This was a complete accident. I'm mortified." She hit send and immediately followed with another message. I understand if you need to report this to HR. I take full responsibility. Again, I apologize profusely. Riley dropped her phone like it was on fire and covered her face with her hands. This was it. Her career was over. She would be fired, blacklisted from every media company in the city, and forever known as the woman who accidentally sent lingerie photos to her CEO. Her phone buzzed. Riley flinched but forced herself to look at the screen. A new message from Grant Whitmore waited for her. Her heart stopped as she read the words, "Keep the set on." "I'm on my way." Riley blinked. "Read it again?" And again. "Keep the set on. I'm on my way." This had to be autocorrect gone horribly wrong. Maybe he meant to write something else. Maybe her phone was broken. Maybe she was having a wine-induced hallucination. Another message appeared. "I'm 10 minutes away. Don't change anything." The phone slipped from Riley's fingers onto the bed. Grant Whitmore, her boss, the CEO, was coming to her apartment right now because she had accidentally sent him a lingerie photo. This was either the beginning of a lawsuit or something else entirely. The unexpected, Rivaleli looked at herself in the mirror. She was still wearing the emerald set, too shocked to think about changing. Should she put on real clothes? Run away? Call a lawyer? Her mind felt like it was moving through mud. 7 minutes later, someone knocked on her door. Riley grabbed her silk robe from the bathroom and wrapped it around herself, though it did little to hide the lingerie underneath. On shaking legs, she walked to the door. Every instinct screamed at her to not answer, to pretend she wasn't home, to move to another state, but her hand was already turning the lock. Grant Whitmore stood in the hallway. Rain-soaked and more casual than Riley had ever seen him. His dark hair was damp and falling across his forehead. The white dress shirt he wore clung to his broad shoulders, the top 2 buttons undone. His gray eyes, usually so controlled and professional, burned with an intensity that made Riley forget how to breathe. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Grant's gaze traveled slowly from Riley's face to where her robe barely concealed the emerald lace, then back up to meet her eyes. The heat in that look nearly knocked her backwards. "Riley," he said, his voice rough and low. "We need to talk." Her throat had gone completely dry. "Mr. Whitmore, I can explain." "Grant," he interrupted, stepping forward into her doorway. "When I show up at your apartment after you send me a photo like that, you call me Grant." Riley's breath caught. It was a mistake. "I meant to send it to my ex, Derek." Grant said quietly, his eyes never leaving hers. "I saw his name in your phone once." 6 months ago? You got a message during a meeting? You looked upset, he had noticed. 6 months ago, Grant had noticed she was upset. Riley felt like the ground was shifting beneath her feet. "But here's what you need to understand," Grant continued, taking another step that brought him fully into her apartment. The door clicked shut behind him. "I'm glad you made that mistake." Riley's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. "What?" "I'm glad," Grant repeated, his voice low and intense, "that you sent that photo to me instead of him. Because I've spent 2 years trying to be professional. 2 years pretending I don't notice when you walk into a room. 2 years keeping my distance because you work for me, and I'm not the kind of man who crosses that line." Riley couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stare at this man she had worked beside for 2 years, seeing him completely differently. "But tonight," Grant said, stepping closer until Riley had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact, "you crossed that line first, and I'm done pretending." His hand came up to brush the edge of her robe. "So I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to answer honestly." "What question?" Riley barely whispered. Grant looked at her with such intensity, she felt it in her bones. "Do you want me to leave?" The apartment seemed to shrink around them. This was her boss. Her career hung in the balance. Every corporate training and HR rule flashed through her mind. But when Riley met Grant's eyes and saw the raw desire and careful restraint there, something inside her broke free from all the rules she had been following her entire life. She had spent 3 years with Derek, always feeling like she needed to earn his attention. But Grant was looking at her like she was the only person who existed in the world. "No," Riley whispered. I don't want you to leave. The careful control Grant had been maintaining shattered. His hands came up to frame her face, and he kissed her with a passion that made Riley forget her own name. She melted into him, her fingers clutching his rain-damp shirt. And for the first time in months, she felt completely and utterly alive. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Grant pressed his forehead against hers. "This changes everything," he said quietly. "I know," Riley whispered back, and she did know. By Monday morning, nothing would be the same. But right now, in his arms, with rain drumming against the window sand, her heart racing, Riley didn't care about Monday. Some mistakes she was learning were actually the best decisions she had ever made. Monday morning reality, Riley woke up Monday. Morning with sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and a warm arm draped across her waist. For a disorienting moment, she forgot where she was. Then the memories of the weekend flooded back, and she turned to see Grant sleeping peacefully beside her. They had spent the entire weekend together. After that first passionate night at her apartment, Grant had taken her to his loft in the Arts District. They talked for hours, sharing stories about their lives, their dreams, their fears. Riley learned that Grant spoke 4 languages, had lived in Tokyo for 3 years, and had a younger brother named Owen who worked as an investigative journalist. Grant discovered that Riley was terrified of thunderstorms, backpacked through South America alone after college, and wrote poetry in a journal she kept hidden. But now it was Monday. Reality day. Back to the office where Grant was the CEO and Riley was just a marketing coordinator in his company. Grant's eyes opened, immediately focusing on her. "Good morning," he said, his voice still rough from sleep. "Morning," Riley replied, suddenly aware of how complicated their situation had become. "We should probably talk about today." Grant pulled her closer. "I know. At work, we have to be professional. No one can know about us until we figure out what this is. What if someone suspects something? Then we deny it until we're ready to tell the truth," Grant said firmly. "But Riley, I meant what I said Friday night. This is real for me. I'm not playing games." Riley kissed him softly. "It's real for me too. That's what scares me." They arrived at Beacon Media Group separately, Grant at 7:30 and Riley at her usual 8:15. Walking into the office felt surreal. Everything looked the same, but Riley felt like a completely different person than the woman who had left Friday afternoon. Her coworker Mason Chen rolled his chair over to her desk. "Good weekend?" Riley's heart jumped. "Quiet, just relaxed." "You terrible date?" The woman spent 2 hours talking about her ex-boyfriend's crypto investments. Mason shook his head dramatically. "How do you even respond to that?" Riley laughed, relieved the conversation had nothing to do with her weekend. She could do this. She could be normal. The team meeting at 10 o'clock, the entire marketing team gathered in the main conference room. Riley took her usual seat and opened her laptop, determined to act completely professional. Then Grant walked in wearing a sharp navy suit, and Riley had to remind herself to breathe. His gaze swept the room, pausing on her for just a fraction of a second longer than everyone else. But that fraction was enough to send heat rushing through Riley's body. "Good morning, everyone," Grant began, his voice commanding and professional. "Let's review the Henderson account strategy." The meeting proceeded normally. Riley participated, offering insights and answering questions with her usual competence. But every time Grant looked in her direction, she remembered how his hands felt on her skin, how his voice sounded when he whispered her name, how he looked at her like she was precious. Halfway through the presentation, Grant asked Riley, "Can you walk us through the social media approach for Henderson?" Riley stood, moving to the front of the room with her notes. She outlined a 3-phase strategy, focusing on demographic targeting, influencer partnerships, and community engagement. Her voice was steady and confident, even though she was hyper-aware of Grant's eyes on her. "Excellent work," Grant said when she finished. The words were completely professional, but Riley caught something deeper in his tone, a warmth meant only for her. When the meeting ended, Grant called out, "Riley, can you stay for a minute? I need to clarify the timeline on Henderson." The other team members filed out, and suddenly Riley and Grant were alone in the conference room. Grant walked to the door and locked it, then turned to face her. "That was torture," he said roughly. "Watching you present, being so close, but not able to touch you." "Grant, we're at work," Riley warned, even as her pulse raced. "I know. I just needed 1 minute." He crossed the room in 3 strides and kissed her deeply. Riley melted into him, forgetting every rule and regulation until her phone buzzed with a meeting reminder. They broke apart, both breathing hard. "This is going to be impossible," Riley said. "We'll figure it out," Grant promised. "Tonight? My place?" Riley nodded. 7 o'clock. The symphony and the photograph over the next few weeks, Riley and Grant fell into a careful rhythm. At work, they maintained strict professionalism. After hours, they built a relationship that felt more real than anything Riley had experienced before. Grant took her to art galleries and introduced her to his favorite hole-in-the-wall restaurants. They cooked dinner together in his kitchen, debating everything from politics to their favorite books. Riley met his brother Owen, who immediately liked her and teased Grant mercilessly about being domesticated. Riley's mother called one evening, asking her usual questions about her life. When she asked if Riley was seeing anyone, Riley couldn't help but tell the truth. "His name is Grant. He works in media. And yes, Mom, he treats me very well." Her mother's excitement was palpable. "I can hear it in your voice, sweetie. You sound happy?" "Really happy." "I am," Riley admitted. "It's complicated, but I really am." 6 weeks after that first accidental photo, Grant surprised Riley with tickets to the New York Philharmonic. They sat in a private box, hidden from the main audience, listened to Rachmaninoff while Grant held her hand. During intermission, Riley leaned against him. "This is perfect. You're perfect," Grant replied, kissing her temple. They left the concert hall hand in hand, caught up in each other, to notice the person with a camera phone capturing their exit. Too happy to think about consequences. The social media stormed Sunday morning. Riley woke to her phone exploding with notifications. Confused and still half asleep, she opened her social media to find herself tagged in dozens of posts. The photo was everywhere. Her and Grant leaving the symphony, his hand on her back, her smiling up at him. The caption on the original post read, "Grant Whitmore, CEO of Beacon Media Group, spotted with mystery woman." Who is she? Riley's stomach dropped. Within hours, someone had identified her. The comments section filled with speculation, gossip, and judgment. Isn't she an employee at his company? Office romance or career move? She must have slept her way into a promotion. Riley called Jamie, her voice shaking. "It's everywhere. Everyone knows." "Okay, breathe," Jamie said calmly. "What did Grant say?" "I haven't told him yet. I just woke up." "Tell him now." "You two need a plan," Riley called Grant immediately. His voice was tight with controlled anger when he answered, "I saw it. I'm calling our attorney and the head of HR. We need to make an official disclosure today, before the office opens Monday." "Grant, this is a disaster." "No," he said firmly. "This is just earlier than we planned." "Riley, listen to me. I meant what I said. I'm not ashamed of us." "Are you?" Riley thought about the past 6 weeks. The laughter, the conversations, the way Grant looked at her like she hung the moon. "No, I'm not ashamed. I'm scared." "Me too," Grant admitted. "But we'll handle this together." The HR confrontation Sunday afternoon, Riley and Grant met with Andrea Morrison, the head of human resources, via video conference. Andrea's expression was professionally neutral, but clearly concerned. "I need to ask both of you some questions," Andrea began, "and I need complete honesty. Mr. Whitmore, did you use your position to pressure Ms. Patterson into a relationship?" "Absolutely not," Grant said firmly. "If anything, I held back for 2 years because of my position. The relationship began mutually." Andrea turned to Riley. "Ms. Patterson, do you feel you were coerced or pressured in any way?" "No," Riley said clearly. "Everything between Grant and me has been completely consensual and mutual." Andrea made notes. "How long has this relationship been ongoing?" 6 weeks, Grant answered. "And you didn't think to disclose it to HR?" Andrea's tone sharpened. Riley spoke up. "We wanted to make sure it was serious before creating complications. We weren't trying to hide anything malicious. We were just trying to understand what we had before exposing it to scrutiny. Andrea sighed. I understand, but this puts the company in a difficult position. The board will need to be notified. There will likely be consequences, especially for you, Mr. Whitmore. What kind of consequences? Riley asked, her chest tightening. It's for the board to decide. But at minimum, Ms. Patterson, you'll need to be transferred to report to someone other than Mr. Whitmore. We need to eliminate any appearance of favoritism or conflict of interest. Grant's jaw clenched. Riley's promotions were earned through her work, not through our relationship. Her performance reviews are exceptional. I believe you, Andrea said. But perception matters. We'll need to manage this carefully. I'll schedule an emergency board meeting for tomorrow. Until then, I suggest you both prepare statements. After the call ended, Riley felt numb. This is really happening. Grant pulled her into his arms. Yes, and we're going to get through it. Together. The board meeting and the ultimatum Monday morning arrived too quickly. Grant had his board meeting at 9. Riley waited anxiously at her desk, unable to focus on anything except her phone. At 10:30, Grant called her. His voice was carefully controlled. Can you come to my office? Riley's hands shook as she walked through the corridors. People stared. Whispers followed her. By now, everyone had seen the photo, and the gossip sites had identified her as a Beacon Media employee in Grant's office. His expression was grim. The board meeting was difficult. They're allowing me to stay as CEO, but with conditions. Increased oversight, ethics training, and I'm recused from any decisions involving your career. And what about me? Riley asked quietly. You're being transferred to the strategy department under Blake Sullivan. Your salary and title remain the same for now, but they're watching both of us carefully. Riley nodded, trying to process everything. I can handle that. There's more, Grant said, his voice heavy. I met with Andrea again after the board meeting. She told me that not everyone on the board was satisfied with these measures. Some members pushed for your termination. The words hit Riley like a physical blow. They want to fire me? Andrea and I fought against it. They agreed to the transfer instead, but Riley, you're looking for any excuse to say this relationship is affecting your work or my judgment. We have to be absolutely perfect. Riley sank into a chair. This is what I was afraid of. That loving you would cost me everything I've worked for. Grant knelt in front of her, taking her hands. Listen to me. You are one of the most talented people in this company. You earned every success you've had. Don't let anyone make you doubt that. But they do doubt it, Riley said, tears threatening. Everyone thinks I slept my way into my position. Then we prove them wrong, Grant said fiercely. You transfer to strategy, you do brilliant work, and you show everyone that you're here because you're exceptional. And I'll be right beside you, supporting you every step of the way. Riley looked at the man who had become her entire world in just 6 weeks. The man who was willing to fight his own board for her. I love you, she whispered. I love you too, Grant said. And that's worth fighting for. The strategy department transfer Riley's first day in the strategy department felt like starting over. Blake Sullivan, her new supervisor, was a woman in her mid-40s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She called Riley into her office first thing Monday morning. I'm going to be direct, Blake said, closing the door. I don't care who you're dating. In my department, you succeed or fail based solely on the quality of your work. Understood? Yes, Riley said, grateful for the clarity. Good, because I've reviewed your portfolio for marketing, and it's impressive. I'm giving you the Westfield account. It's challenging, high profile, and if you succeed, it will prove to everyone in this company that you're here because of your talent, not your personal life. Riley felt a surge of determination. Thank you for the opportunity. I won't let you down. I'm counting on it, Blake said. Now, let's get to work. The Westfield account was indeed challenging. The client was a luxury hotel chain looking to rebrand and attract younger demographics without alienating their established wealthy clientele. Riley threw herself into research, staying late every night, conducting focus groups, and developing a comprehensive strategy. But the whispers didn't stop. She heard them in the break room, saw the judgmental looks, read the implications in emails. Her colleague Bethany Davis was particularly vocal, making snide comments whenever Riley passed by. "Must be nice having connections in high places," Bethany said loudly one afternoon in the coffee area. "Some of us actually have to work for our opportunities." Riley wanted to snap back, to defend herself, but she remembered Grant's advice. Let your work speak for itself. 2 weeks into the Westfield project, Riley presented her strategy to Blake and the senior team. She had prepared a multimedia presentation showcasing demographic research, competitor analysis, and a phased implementation plan. Her hands shook slightly as she began, aware that everyone was evaluating not just her work, but whether she deserved to be there. By the time Riley finished, the room was silent. Then Blake started clapping. "That was exceptional work. The level of detail and strategic thinking here is exactly what we need." "Well done, Riley." The other team members nodded in agreement. Even the ones who had been skeptical seemed impressed. It was a small victory, but Riley felt like she could breathe again. The anonymous complaint 3 weeks after her transfer. Andrea Morrison called Riley into her office. Grant was already there, his expression dark with barely controlled anger. "What's going on?" Riley asked, her stomach sinking. Andrea held up a printed document. "We received an anonymous complaint. It alleges that Mr. Whitmore has been showing you favoritism, that your transfer to strategy was actually a lateral promotion disguised to avoid scrutiny, and that you're receiving preferential treatment." Riley felt sick. "That's not true. Blake can confirm I'm working the same hours as everyone else, handling the same workload. If anything, I'm working harder to prove myself." "I've already spoken to Blake," Andrea said. "She confirms your performance has been exemplary and you've received no special treatment. But the board is taking this complaint seriously. They're proposing something that I need to discuss with both of you." Grant's jaw tightened. "What are they proposing?" Andrea looked uncomfortable. "They want to offer Miss Patterson a separation package. 6 months' salary, excellent references and assistance finding a position at another firm. In exchange, she would resign and sign a non-disclosure agreement about the relationship." The room spun around Riley. They were trying to buy her out, to make her disappear so the uncomfortable situation would go away. Grant said immediately. "Absolutely not. Riley has done nothing wrong. This is discrimination, plain and simple." "They're framing it as a voluntary option," Andrea explained. "A way for Miss Patterson to leave with her reputation intact before things get more difficult." "More difficult?" Riley found her voice. "You mean before they manufacture reasons to fire me?" Andrea's silence was answer enough. Riley stood, her mind racing. She had worked too hard, sacrificed too much, to let the board push her out because her relationship was inconvenient. An idea began forming, risky, but potentially effective. "I have a counterproposal," Riley said firmly. The counterproposal requested a meeting with the full board of directors. Andrea tried to discourage her, worried it would make things worse, but Riley insisted. Grant wanted to attend, but Riley asked him to let her do this alone. "I need them to see me as my own person, not as your girlfriend," she explained. "Trust me on this." The board meeting was held on a Friday afternoon. Riley walked into the conference room where 8 board members sat waiting, including the chairman, Robert Chen. Her heart pounded, but she kept her shoulders back and her voice steady. "Thank you for meeting with me," Riley began. "I understand you've offered me a separation package. I'm declining it. Instead, I'd like to propose an alternative solution." Robert Chen raised an eyebrow. "We're listening." "Transfer me again," Riley said. "Not to avoid conflict of interest, but to prove myself beyond any doubt. Move me to business development under Patricia Reed. It's a completely different department. And Patricia has no connection to Grant. I'll take a voluntary 10% pay reduction for the next year." To demonstrate this isn't about money or advancement, she paused, meeting each board member's eyes. "Additionally, I'll agree to a performance review conducted by an independent third party, someone outside the company, who can objectively assess whether my work merits my position. If that review shows I'm not meeting standards, I'll resign with no package, no complaints, no legal action." And if the review shows you are meeting standards? Another board member asked. Then you acknowledge that my relationship with Grant is separate from my professional capabilities? And you stop trying to force me out. You let me build my career based on merit. Robert Chen leaned forward. Why should we agree to this? It's easier for everyone if you simply accept the package and move on. Riley's voice strengthened. Because if you force me out, you're sending a message to every woman in this company that having a relationship with someone in leadership means sacrificing her career. Is that the message Beacon Media wants to send? That talented employees should be punished for falling in love? The room fell silent. Patricia Reed, the head of business development, spoke up. I like this proposal. It shows integrity and confidence. And frankly, I've reviewed Ms. Patterson's work. She's exactly the kind of strategic thinker my department needs. If she's willing to prove herself under independent scrutiny, I'm willing to supervise her. Another board member nodded. It addresses our concerns about favoritism while keeping a valuable employee. I support exploring this option. Robert Chen studied Riley for a long moment. We'll discuss this and give you our answer by Monday. The verdict and validation really spent the weekend on edge, alternating between confidence and terror. Grant tried to distract her with movies and cooking, but she could barely focus. Everything she had worked for hung in the balance. Monday morning, Andrea called Riley into her office. To Riley's surprise, Robert Chen was there via video conference.